Fly belly up.
This is the game. It's cat and mouse.
Smoked a turkey. Yes. He is down. He is freaking down.
Said he shot an absolute giant.
Fall obsession, baby.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. I am Sam Thrash from Fall Obsession, your host once again for this week's podcast. And joining me today, we have a newcomer to our podcast, but by no means a newcomer to Fall Obsession. He's been a member of our staff and a contributor to our organization for several years now, and that is our very own pro staffer, Stephen Bowen. Stephen, welcome to Fall Obsession podcast, man.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you on. Glad we could finally make something work and get you on here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's really exciting to see where Fall Obsession has been going over especially the past couple of years. So it's just great to be able to be a part of it.
I couldn't agree more, man. I'm right there with you. Well, before we get into our topic, I do want to, as always, bring up that this podcast is brought to our listeners by our friends over at Elite Archery. We continue to be very fortunate to be partnered with a company like Elite. Larry Mack and all the guys over there at Elite and the Outdoor Group have helped us out a bunch in the past couple of years. It's our second year running Elite bows. I know I'm set up with a cure for the 2020 season, and Stephen, I believe you are as well.
Yes, sir. I got mine right before Christmas, and I had a chance to take one deer with it this year. It was right there at the end of the season, but oh man, it is something else. There's nothing that can compare to it, to be honest with you. I've been shooting archery, I've done competitions, and I started with an Elite bow back 10, 15 years ago, right around the time that they first came out. It was a Elite XLR, and man, I love that thing. It was just, I couldn't get a cam that fit my draw length the way I needed, so I tried some different stuff, but, came right back to them, man. They're awesome.
Man, and that new cure too with the quarter-inch draw length increments and the set technology. In my opinion, there's never been a bow that you could really fine-tune in to be customized for you. There's never been a bow like it, in my opinion.
No, not anything like this. I mean, I work on mine myself anyway.
Right.
There wasn't a bow shop near me, so I had to kind of learn myself. And I got this thing in. It probably didn't take me an hour and a half to have it bare shaft tuned. I mean, it was just a breeze. I mean, the set technology, you don't have to put it in a press to change anything. You can almost set it up to where you want it before you ever take your first shot. I mean, it was super easy to set up, and I even played with it a little bit just to see what I could make a bare shaft do. And you could get a paper tear that was 6 inches left and then come right back to a bullet hole. I mean, whatever you did to those adjustment screws, the bow reacted and stayed right where you put it. So
absolutely,
it was really sweet working with it.
Yeah, guys, if you guys have not already, please go check out the Cure at your local dealer. And if you don't have a local dealer by you, like Steven, then you can check them out online. They even have a bow builder online where if you're going to order one, you can order it, customize it to what you want, order it online, and then have it shipped directly to you, along with a lot of other Elite accessories online. So they got a good setup there on their website. But again, if you can make it to a dealer to try one out, please do. And let us know your thoughts. And if you want some more info on them, if you want to see more about what we're talking about with the set technology and the adjustability of this bow, then go to our YouTube page, our social media pages, and our website, fallobsession.com, and see what we have. We got plenty of videos and content over the subject of the Elite Cure, for sure. So, well, Stephen, this is a and I like the transparency of our podcast, which is why I'm bringing this up. But this is a working man's podcast. We're everyday guys, and we're catching you right now midday on a weekday over your lunch break. So we want to make sure that we keep it moving. That way we can get you back in time. But one thing that we did want to talk about with you is something that is, I say relatively new, but guys like you have been doing it for a little while now, and that is saddle hunting. And I find it a very interesting topic. I can't say that I have experienced it myself just yet. Several of our guys on our staff, including yourself, have. So that's why I thought it was a good idea when you brought it up to sit down and talk about this and kind of explain the concept behind saddle hunting for us.
For me, it makes the most sense. It's so much lighter. It's so much safer than hunting out of a lock-on or a climber or, a ladder stand. If you're in a big tower stand, that's a pretty safe place to be. But, for us guys that like to get out and bow hunt, we move around a lot. And, if you got a little piece of property, it's hard to have enough stands set up to hunt everywhere you want to. With a saddle, you can go just prep the trees. I mean, there's so many different climbing methods to be able to get into, your hunting position that you can go, if you use a double rope technique where you actually just basically pull yourself up the tree, you throw a rope over a limb, you can go out pre-season and set some little pieces of paracord. So all you got to do is hook your rope to it, pull it up over the limb, and you're in the tree. Or, you can use spikes, like screw-in steps, and prep a bunch of trees all over the property, and then you have unlimited options because you're wearing your saddle, your stand. You're not out there worrying about if the wind's going to be right for this one or the wind's going to be right for that one. Because they're all, when you're using the saddle, you can hunt any of them at any time.
Gotcha. So again, I have yet to experience it myself, but so you are literally, you're wearing your stand in, you're already sitting in it when you walk into the woods, and you just have to climb up and clip in, basically.
That's pretty much it. Most of the saddles that you buy today are basically a combination safety harness and saddle. So when you put it on, it's clipped on. When you get to the tree, put your lineman's belt, around the tree and hook it to your saddle. Whether you're using your sticks or you've got ladder set up or spikes, you start climbing the tree. So you're clipped off from the moment you leave the ground. And then when you get to your hunting height, you have another lanyard, tether is what it's called. And you wrap that around the tree, and that's what you clip your saddle harness, your bridge to. And that's the rope that's attached to your actual saddle that allows you to kind of hang and sit. You've also got the lineman loops for your lineman belt. So you're always attached to the tree, basically. You're never free hanging. You're never just hanging off. You always got a line attached to the tree. So, and there's pretty much no way to fall out of the saddle. I believe they're kind of designed after a combination of like a rock climbing harness and arborist, climbing harness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made to keep you in it. There's nothing I found that's any safer. And as far as like comfort goes, I've broken my back twice, and it was really hard on me to sit in like a lock-on stand or a ladder stand for more than 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Right.
I'd get real fidgety. But with the saddle, I can get in several different positions that are very comfortable, and I've sat 5-6 hours in it. So,
Wow.
To me, there's no issue in comfort. It's actually far more comfort.
I got you. So what originally sparked your interest in it? Was it the not being able to sit for extended periods of time like that, or were you just looking for something different?
Well, really, for me, I think it was more about mobility. When I started was, because I hunt different properties and having stands set up all over the place, it's just hard to maintain all that by yourself. So with the mobility, I could, prep a few trees and, have 100 stand locations on 3 different properties and only have one stand.
Mm-hmm.
If I get to the hunting land and, okay, the wind's not doing what I expected it to be doing, that's okay, because I can just go to another tree, I can move on somewhere different, and it doesn't hurt my planning as much, having that mobility.
Right.
And also hunting public land. being able to hunt public land, I can go a lot further back in some places that other people say carrying a, climber or a lock-on set, that they'd have a lot harder time to get back there. Where I can just walk back there like I'm just carrying my bow basically in a little backpack with camera gear. So, it's a lot easier to get in and out of places with too. It's mobility would be the reason I started, but the comfort is really the biggest benefit I think I've found.
Gotcha. So, what kind of difference have you seen when it comes down to managing your equipment from the saddle? And mainly what I'm talking about is you're a bow hunter like myself, and is it more difficult, you think, to be able to acquire your target to draw back, or are you just kind of swinging around, or are you able to still get a solid setup, you think, when you draw your bow back?
Well, I've always preferred to sit shooting down when I could, just because out of a tree, because the trees tends to be moving a little bit. Your legs are shaky, so I try to get as solid of a base as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And with the saddle, your feet, you can actually have your feet on your step or your platform, your knees against the tree. So you've got, 2 points of contact right there against the tree. And when you're sitting down, so that's 3. And I mean, it's far easier for me. I make a far better shot out of my saddle than I do out of a stand.
Gotcha.
And as far as getting around to be able to get a shot, for one, the way you set up in a saddle, you're setting up on the back side of the tree, so you have the tree trunk in front of you. So you've got this you've got a blind right there in front of you for the most of the time. And if the deer comes in where you think he is, you really just got to move a few inches off to the side of the tree to draw and shoot.
Gotcha.
And I mean, all these things, it takes a little time when you first start. I mean, I got out in the backyard on a tree and started figuring out how I wanted to hang all my stuff, where I wanted my bow, where I wanted my tether, making sure everything was comfortable, and had to figure out a system of what order to hang how to, set everything up when you're in the tree. But I had to do the same thing when I was hunting out of a stand too. When I first started, you get in there and be fumbling around with stuff, and over time you develop that system of, okay, I get there, bow hanger goes up, bag goes up, camera arm comes out, pull my bow up, hang it up, whatever your system is. And after that, it's a really smooth transition to using your equipment, because everything's right there in front of you. It's all right there hanging on the tree.
Awesome.
Well, I'll say one more thing as far as the shot capabilities. You can shoot 360 degrees around that tree.
Yeah.
Some of the shots require a little bit more movement to get into position, but for the most part, I can shoot probably 280, 300 degrees from my main position without, with very little movement.
Gotcha. Man, that's awesome. Are there different variations of the saddle setup, or is it pretty standard across the board?
Well, the basic concept is pretty standard, but you've got different companies. You've got like the Kestrel saddles, and the Mantis saddles. It's Tethered is the name of the company that makes them. And Kestrel, I think they make the Arrow Hunter. The one I'm using is actually a DIY saddle that I started researching it and found some ways. I wasn't ready to spend a whole lot of money to start off, so I found a way to get into it kind of basic, see if I was even going to like it. And honestly, I was still using the same DIY saddle, which you can go on YouTube and look up G2 Outdoors. The guy, Greg Godfrey, he actually is one of the inventors of the Mantis saddle. And he has a lot of videos on the do-it-yourself stuff, on, how to make a DIY saddle that's safe and, the things you need to know. And that's where I got my information.
Gotcha. So you've talked a little bit about the advantages and your draw toward saddle hunting and the saddle setup, but what has there been any kind of struggles for you when you transitioned to utilizing the saddle? Anything that you felt was difficult or took longer to get used to than you anticipated or that you struggled with?
Well, I mean, I've done a lot of experimenting with different climbing methods, and some of them are good for me, and some of them aren't. And there's been some definite struggles in that department. And like I said, I did a lot of research. So as far as the learning curve, I had time. I got my stuff during, actually around this time of the year before I started hunting. And I got in the backyard and set up on a tree right there at the ground. And it's like, okay, how am I going to do this? All right. So what if I hang my bow here or hang it there? So I tried to minimize the transition, the problems in transition. But as far as really major issues, I mean, it's different. But other than that, it hadn't been anything bad that just even made me consider going, oh, I'm not doing this again,
Right. No, that's definitely good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And there is a difference, especially if you have a little bit of a fear of heights and stuff. I can see where that could be difficult for someone to get used to just kind of hanging off the tree by a rope versus sitting in a stand. So.
Right. So you do most of your hunting down in Georgia, correct?
Yes, sir. Southeast Georgia.
So obviously saddle hunting is very, very practical and applicable for you down there. Are there any other environments that you think that it would also be effective in versus another type of stand setup?
Well, the thing about it is, with a saddle, you can hunt in a tree that is, 8-10 inches in diameter, something that you couldn't get a climber around, or a lock on probably be too heavy to set it up. But with the saddle, you can still get in there and get set up. You may not have the best cover, or if you're hunting like a really thick area that's got some small trees, you can get set up in that. I mean, you can hunt from 5-foot trees that are gigantic, big gigantic trees, down to 6, 8, 10-inch diameter, I guess, depending on the hunter size, what you feel safe climbing in.
Right.
And I mean, it's like when we were in Texas. I mean, there was trees down there that I definitely could have hunted out of in the saddle. And, it's be a little more difficult or a little different than what I'm used to. But, I mean, you can get in them, and I think it'd be very beneficial in that area, like where we hunted in Texas.
Right.
You could get in some of these places that you wouldn't think you'd put a stand there, but if you have them, you can get up there and have enough room to sit and still get a shot. You can pretty much hunt it.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Even though I haven't tried it, it sounds like it's a pretty simple concept. It's just unfamiliar to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, and that's the biggest thing is I think a lot of people are just worried about hanging from a tree, but it just doesn't seem safe. Well, if you fall out of your stand, you're dependent on that little rope to save you.
Right.
You're already hanging from it, so there's no shock and nothing like that. But
so, Stephen, the saddle concept is really interesting to me. It's something that I hope that I might get to try some time in the near future. But I also, while we have you on the phone, want to talk just about some hunting with you. I mean, we're a hunting podcast, and I want to talk some hunting. So I appreciate you kind of recapping and telling us about your saddle setup. And I'm sure that if any of our listeners have any questions, they can either tag you in some of the comments online or send us an email, and we can get them in touch with you regarding it as well.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to answer anything that I can help with. If I don't know the answer, I'm sure I can find out for you.
Absolutely. So, man, moving into some hunting, you mentioned, coming down here to Texas last year. I know we've, in several podcast episodes, kind of over time, we have recapped certain things that happened on that trip and memories that we have. But I want to hear your side of the story, man. What was that trip like for you?
It was a little bit of, a dream come true because I've always wanted to go to Texas to hunt. I mean, that was, I didn't really care what we were hunting. I just always wanted to go. My sister lived out there for a few years, and I never could make it happen. So to get to go this time was that just being there was amazing. Seeing the difference in the terrain, the way the deer are, just the way they act. I mean, it was, the whole experience was a little bit of a dream for me.
Absolutely. I think even for us that are here in Texas, I think it was it was kind of the same way, because even though we're familiar with the terrain, the environment, stuff like that, one, just the amount of deer that were out there was crazy, and then
Oh,
two, getting to hang out, all of us as Fall Obsession staff, actually in person in deer camp was a pretty cool experience as well.
oh, no doubt. I mean, that was probably the best part of it, that all the guys there were, everybody was helping everybody. And I mean, it was just we never met, but it was like one big family, as right from the start, and that was probably the best part of it to me, was getting to meet y'all, and, the cooking and cleaning deer, and, just the whole 9 yards. The camp experience was, probably, like I said, it was my favorite part, because, I mean, back home where I'm at, other than hunting with my little girl and every now and then a friend, I tend to hunt by myself. So I've never had that big deer camp experience like a lot of folks that, you go down on the weekend and camp, and, that's what you do. So this was really my first true deer camp.
Absolutely. I think that there's, for a lot of us, it was as well, because we, whether it's hunting with family, hunting with your dad, there's a certain sense of camaraderie that you have there, but then when you get just a bunch of friends together to hunt like that, it's different, man, and it's awesome.
Most certainly. I mean, I couldn't have had a better time.
That's awesome.
And we meeting all the guys, and it's like Andy, he was in Georgia, I guess last week or something, and he sent me a text. It's like, hey, I know you're down here this way. Where are you? I mean, he was a little far away, but still, it's nice that, you make friends that not just online buddies, but, we've got friends for life now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something special that we have here at Fall Obsession, and something that has developed and grown over time, is that camaraderie, is that brotherhood, that and I say it time and time again, how privileged I am to be able to look at our staff and just see the family that's there, because you have big pro and field staff programs at other organizations, and not to knock on them, but it gets to a point where you're just another name and another number in the system. But we are, and you guys are pro and field staffers. You guys have made an effort to actually, keep that contact with one another and grow upon that family aspect of everything. And that's what's turned it into one big brotherhood, one big family of now 30 something guys, which is awesome. So
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's come so far. I mean, I'm just happy to be a part of it. And like you said, the group of guys we have are pretty exceptional. And, from what I've seen being around this hunting industry, and, pro staff and field staffs and different companies. So I don't see me going anywhere. I'd like to see where we wind up in another 20 years,
Man, it'd be awesome. There's endless possibilities, man. There truly is.
No doubt.
So, what do you have? What do you have in mind for this year? You got any target bucks at home, or are you and your little girl going to be doing anything fun for hunting season this year?
Well, we're setting up a few new spots. They're actually my lease that I have out here close to the house, it's being cut for timber, or the timber's being cut in the next week or so, I hope. So that's going to present a unique challenge because, I mean, everything's going to change. But honestly, I'm looking forward to it because when they cut the timber, I know a lot of guys that are like, nope, I'm done. I'm finding somewhere else. But for me, it's kind of a clean slate.
Yeah.
So I can kind of keep trails cut and help steer the deer in directions I want them to go. I can kind of grow it back into the habitat that is going to work for me, but also work for the deer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's a give and take. Yeah, it's going to be different for a couple of years, but it gives you an opportunity, a fresh start to maybe try, you know, have a little better chance come November, you know? Other than that, of course, we got my buddy's place over there that we'll be hunting, and where she's killed most of hers. And so far, we've got a couple of good bucks, and that's really going to be my goal this year is to get her first buck. Little girl, she'll be 8 this year, and she had a really good first season and pretty good one last year, and so this year she said she's ready to kill a buck now. So
well, there you go.
I got my work cut out for me.
Yeah. better watch out before long. She'll be killing bucks and leaving you with does.
And that will be just fine with me. Don't. I'd rather her be doing it, and you know, it won't be long. My son will be doing it. So I knew when I had kids that the day would come that I would just be the guide, you know.
Yep.
Until that day comes, I'm gonna still be hitting it hard.
No, I hear you, man. Yeah, it's something that happens when you get kids out there in the woods. You become more excited than they are to watch them succeed. So I know I'm looking forward to it with my son one day. So and you obviously have already gotten a taste of it. So.
Oh, and you know that. And one thing, I was talking to a friend of mine that just had a kid, and or at least for me, when I had kids, up until then, I'd never hunted out of a ground blind. I'd, never hunted from the ground. I'd always hunted from a climbing stand.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started having kids, it changed the way I thought about things because I'm going, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do this where I can take my daughter. I got to figure out how to do it where she'll be safe and, she can go and enjoy it too. So ground blinds came into play, and here in Georgia, that hunting from a ground blind can be quite challenging.
No, I hear you, man. So one thing that I wanted to bring up and kind of get your concept behind it is your setup for your self-filming, because you do a lot of self-filming, and we got to kind of witness your setup and your equipment, like you're talking about in last year's Texas hunt down here when you joined us. And I think Nick Powell mentioned on a previous podcast episode that he was really wanting to get you on here to kind of explain what your setup is for self-filming, because we have a lot of followers that do just that. So before we wrap it up here, if you got time, I'd love to hear, and I'm sure our listeners as well would love to hear what your self-filming setup is, how you put that together.
All right. Well, what I'm using these days is Theroux camera gear. Like I said earlier, with the saddle hunting, mobility was a big thing for me. So the Theroux has a really nice knuckle setup that allows you to level on pretty much any tree. I mean, they've got really great products, really well made. And I started with just the camera arm and the tree knuckle, the little stiff arm set. And I got their fluid bed. Also, the camera I got is a Panasonic HCV 770, I think. And it's not a high-end camcorder, but it's a full HD. It takes pretty good videos. I mean, I think I'd have to probably step up to like a 4K version to get much better video out of a camcorder like that. But it's got a lot of features that makes hunting like in the ground blind a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were in Texas, you can connect your phone to the camera and use your phone to control the zoom, start and stop recording, stuff like that. And you can use it's also a viewfinder, so you don't have to keep the little viewfinder on the camera open, letting light in, and moving, having to peek over there to see what you're doing. You can have it in your lap where you just glance down, say, okay, right before you shoot, he's in the frame. Okay, got him. Draw back, shoot. So that's a nice feature. You got the camera arm and the camera, and I also use the Theroux tripod. It's got an adapter that you can put your camera arm on. So like you're in a ground blind, you can set your tripod up off to the side and use your camera on the camera arm. So it's you can move it back out of the way to the side. So when you're bow hunting, you can have it set up where you can see, and it's not in the way. You don't have the tripod right in front of you, so it's not hard to draw your bow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about the system.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And for our listeners' sake, I will also clarify that we at Fall Obsession at this time are in no way partnered with Theroux camera arms. So these are products that Steven has spent his own money on and invested his own resources into to make work, done his own research on, and this is his honest opinion coming to you straight from field experience. So this isn't a biased opinion out of corporate partnership or anything. So.
Oh no, this is just experience, and now they've even taken it a step further. The knuckle that attaches to the tree is way lighter. I mean, every time I look, they're coming out with something new and more innovative. I think they actually have a conversion kit to make the camera arm a shooting rest too.
Oh wow!
So, yeah, they've got parts that will actually attach to the to like a box blind, like we were in Texas. So you can attach your camera arm to it, or the shooting rest can be attached to something like that. I mean, I like you said, I did research. I started off with homemade tree arm or bow hanger tree arms for camera arms, and I got tired of fighting with that, and then started looking and found Theroux, and I hadn't looked back since. Everything I've gotten from them has been high quality, very well made, and very practical.
Well, there you go, guys. If you're interested in self-filming, sounds like you need to go check out Theroux if you haven't already. All right, Steven. Well, we've talked about the saddle. We've talked about your self-filming. We've talked a little bit of hunting and some fun memories and hunting with kids and stuff like that. Like I said at the beginning, I know this is a working man's podcast. We need to get you back to work. But before we go, I got to hit you with our rapid fire questions that we do at the end of every episode.
All right. Shoot.
So guys, these, and also a cool new thing that we got going now is these rapid fire questions are brought to you guys by our friends over at Custom Bow Equipment. So if you're looking for sights, rests, or quivers, anything like that, go check out our friends over at CBE. All right, Steven, question number 1. What is your favorite hunting memory to date?
My little girl killing her first deer.
That's a good one to have, my friend. Question number 2. What is a bucket list hunt that you haven't been able to do yet?
But there's so many.
Man, that is, I ask that question to everybody, and that is the answer I get every single time.
I'm just going to say anything in Alaska.
Anything in Alaska.
Pretty much.
Alaska would be an adventure in and of itself, man. That's awesome.
Right.
All right. Third and final question. Kind of the main topic and what we started our discussion today was saddle hunting. So if you had to give one big piece of advice to somebody who is thinking about or just now trying saddle hunting for the first time, what would it be?
Hook up with somebody that's been doing it a while so they can help you get everything set up where it'll be comfortable for you. Everybody's different, so get somebody. And there's a lot of guys on Facebook and probably someone near you that does it that'll be willing to kind of show you and the different adjustments you can do, the way they do it, and give you some pointers on how you can be comfortable when you get set up.
Good advice right there. Well, when I finally get ready to do it, I'll hit you up. How about that?
Sounds good to me, bud. I'll be glad to help out.
All right, man. Well, Steven, I appreciate you joining us for another podcast episode. It was good to get you on here for the first time, and I'm sure that we'll be having you back on here before too long as well. And I'm looking forward to it, man. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to be on here. It's been fun. I hope somebody learned something from all this. And if there's anybody's got questions, I feel more than free to get in touch with me on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, and we'll see what we can do to get them answered.
Absolutely. And on that note, guys, if you haven't already, please check out our pages, Fall Obsession on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do have some content on our website right now, and I'm sure there will be more coming regarding saddle hunting, some reviews and stuff like that. So feel free to reach out to us to get in contact with Steven or any of the other guys that have been doing it on our staff. Also, check out some of our other video series. We have our Cure Your Obsession series, which is a great one for entry and experienced level archers to check out on that. And then our new series Off Season is also showing what our guys have been doing in their downtime in between hunting seasons and stuff like that. So go check both of those out as well when you get a chance. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to this podcast. We come out with a new episode every single week. Hopefully we're going to be able to keep that up. So be sure you hit that follow and subscribe button so you get notified every time we publish a new episode on Monday mornings. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any questions about this podcast or want to suggest a future topic, you can go to fallobsession.com/podcast, and we will be able to get back to you and hopefully cover your suggestions or your questions in a future episode. So we thank you guys for tuning in. Steven, thank you again, sir. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Not a problem. And we will see you guys again next week for another episode of our Fall Obsession podcast. We'll catch you later.